First, I actually was a nerd. Like, I was a computer programmer. My dad, he was a photographer in first place, and he was the third generation photographer in his family. And I never wanted to become like my dad, not at all, because he was never there, and it's just, I didn't think that doing photos doesn't make any sense, to be honest. Later on, when I started doing civil service in a nursing home, I was a nurse in that time for a year. It started for the first time that I took a picture of a person, and then I kind of saw that it's actually like really interesting capturing a personality into a picture. And then I started developing and learning. I started to take more pictures, and my dad gave me private lessons for photography and everything. And beside that, friends of mine in Austria and we did a couple of short films. Our first was called Hot Like Hell, and it was a Baywatch parody. And we were just running around with Baywatch bathing suits through our hometown and helped old people over the street and whatsoever. And that was pretty funny. That got an award, like 2 awards in Austria for young filmmakers. And then we thought, maybe it works out to do films. Maybe it's just good for a purpose. So that's how everything started. First picture I did, which got published, was when I was a nurse. I took pictures of our old people living in the nursing home. And so one person passed away, so they used my picture for all the letters of, you just give to the families. And when I received it, I said, wow, I mean, it's kind of sad that she's dead, but this is my picture. So that was my first public release of a picture, and that was great. And now I'm sort of 4th generation photographer in our family. So it's a little bit in our root. I mean, by the end of the day, when I look at my pictures, they have like really similarities to my father's pictures, and I think it's nothing bad. Yeah, he has a good style, and maybe I'm copying it, but not on purpose. It just happens. Generally, I first always have the picture, and starting from that picture and that impression and that mood, I develop my story on. That's not the ideal way, it's a little bit reverse, but for me it works out. Also being said, it depends on the core idea. If this idea works best in film, then you should do a film about it. If it works actually best in a photo series, do that. If you have to paint for it, just choose your media that works best for you, and then plan ahead. So it's not a category that's just a favorite. In film it's different. In film you have the dimension of time, which sort of helps but makes a lot of things more difficult. It's just a purpose, why you want to do this. In photography, of course, it's difficult. What helps me most is when I know the person very well, so I know the environment where it's at, I know what kind of person it is, what does it like, what does it dislike. And then, like, after 100 pictures, you have this one picture, and it actually displays the person just really very well, and then you're happy. It's like you get, these happy moments. That's why you do pictures. I did a short film called Coming Home, which was screened at the Montreal Film Festival, and it was about an elderly man who escaped from the nursing home to go back to his house where he once lived. But his daughter already sold the house, so she has the delicate task to bring him back to the nursing home. So this was my first short film here. I think it started with my puberty. I hated to be young. I always wanted to be 50 years old, for some reason. I think it's just because then you have you kind of know how the world rolls, kind of sort of. When you're young, you have no idea what's going on. I hated this feeling. Then later on I worked in an elderly home. I was a nurse over there. And I got a really good inside look how it feels to be old, and just characters who already been gone through so many things, I think are much more interesting to display and to work with than with just young people who are just exploring their life.
First of all, what really draws my eyes is light. How light defines a subject, how it says this is happy, this is sad, how you can create a mood with it. So first of all, I always have kind of the lightning in my head, and then I start to placing people in it. And I do, mostly I like to do fashion photography, because it's more free, it's kind of narrative, but what I like to do is combine it with portrait photography. So I like to see the people and like to capture something of themselves, just a little bit. And this is what's inspiring me, because if you just do fashion and the girls look like, it's, I mean, what about that? So what I like is to see through the shield, through the mask, somehow. I think it was kind of instinctive. When we saw, I mean, it always depended on the light, of course, because if it's really dark, you can't do a great picture. So we were walking around in the streets and just inhaling the country, how the people are, talking with them. We're not great talkers, but we tried somehow to connect with the people. But then we didn't have the camera with us. We tried to go out, like meeting people, see how things are run, how they are, how they react to strangers. And then we always were on the streets and we took our cameras and the snow globe. Then we were trying to find something nice or some interesting people or just someone we met on the street, just creating situations.
Because it's super kitsch, and we thought it's like actually brave to take this as your main symbol, which nobody would take, just because it's like, oh well, are you serious? This is a freaking snow globe. Why are you doing this with that? So just rising this up and making this to your most important object for like 80 days is kind of interesting. I think that was the motivation.
And representing Austria with it.
And representing Austria with this little thing. Yeah.
we had thought about other stuff, but we liked the snow globe the most, and people reacted the most on it.
Later on, when we realized actually we want to have a connection with this person for the picture, but I don't want to be part of that, we take this little object. Later on, we actually realized that this object is partly a reference of us. But that was a development that started from the beginning and ended like right now.
Yeah, because the reaction was so great.
Yeah.